Hi there, friends. Welcome into the new home of CBS News 24/7. What's new? What's now? You can count on all of our live video feeds from all over the world to help us keep our promise to you, and that is this. When we see it, you will see it in seconds. So right now, top of mind, huge decisions from the U.S. Supreme Court. They are coming the day after some much talked about presidential debates. We're following the Trump and Biden campaigns in real time. We're also watching their reactions to the Supreme Court rulings that just came out. Let's go. Okay, so right off the top, let's start in Raleigh, North Carolina, where President Joe Biden is set to speak shortly. This comes after the president faced off against former President Donald Trump last night in Atlanta for the first debate between these two this year. Meanwhile, we are also following in real time former President Donald Trump on the campaign trail today. In fact, we're just hours away from his event, and you're seeing it live now right there in Chesapeake, Virginia. This is close to Norfolk, Virginia. But how are the campaigns feeling today, looking forward, right? And, you know, you saw the headlines, so did I. How is the Biden camp feeling about the headlines? Should they be worried about the president's stumbles? They've been talked about today a lot. And what about former President Donald Trump's false or misleading statements? We'll go live to North Carolina and Virginia shortly. But first, let's break this down with the breaking news out of Washington and some major rulings by the U.S. Supreme Court that will most assuredly be on the lips of the two men vying for the presidency. So let's go out live right now to campaign reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman right now. So we have a ruling on the accused January 6th insurrectionists. Tell us about that, first of all.
This is a very important ruling that we've been waiting for. And as you said, it's related to the January 6th Capitol riot cases. This was a case that was brought by a former police officer, Joseph Fisher, who claimed that one of the charges against him, a statute involving the obstruction of an official proceeding, didn't actually apply to the riot that took place on the Capitol. In the language of that statute, it talks about the destruction of documents and records, and the Supreme Court has now decided that that statute should be interpreted in a narrow way, where the defendant has somehow impaired a record or document. So his case is being sent back down, and this could potentially have implications for hundreds of cases against these January 6th Capitol rioters. It also could have implications for former President Donald Trump's case, the D.C. election interference case that was brought by special counsel Jack Smith against him, because two of those charges involve obstruction of an official proceeding. Now, it won't necessarily take those out of the indictment, but Trump will certainly try to get them dismissed now, and Jack Smith will have to do an assessment of how they interplay with this new interpretation of that statute.
Well, the Supreme Court really gave us three headlines today. Tell us, if you can, quickly about the Chevron ruling. All right. I think we just lost Katrina. We apologize for that. But, hey, this is television deconstructed. And so we move on. We're plugging in the cables right now to talk to my friend Weijia Jiang. Weijia, you're on the campaign trail with the Biden administration. And listen, it was a tough night for President Joe Biden. Looking forward, what's the energy there in that room right now?
Well, we are waiting for President Biden to take the stage at any moment now, Reed. And these voters are energized. We actually spoke with several of them a short time ago, and they are saying the same thing that we're hearing from the White House and from the Biden campaign, which is that it wasn't the president's best night. In fact, some are using the word terrible, but they're also saying that that's okay because they believe that it was just one night and that he's not going to be judged on that. Of course, based on our own reporting at CBS News, there are Democrats, there are lawmakers, there are officials within the own party that have a lot of concerns about what happened last night and the president's inability to articulate certain policy points and his failure to fact-check Donald Trump in real time on many issues where Trump told falsities about abortion, about the economy, about health care. And so there is a big question about, what Democrats plan to do. But the campaign, Reed, believes that they're going to be able to turn the page on this. And they're hoping that we'll see that in just a bit here in Raleigh, North Carolina.
All right, so let's go from one rally to another with thanks to you, Weija. Caitlin Huey-Burns is joining us now from Chesapeake, Virginia. What's the energy there? These rulings from the Supreme Court definitely met by Trump supporters and fans with a thumbs up. What kind of energy are they getting there at the Trump campaign now?
Hey, Reed, good to see you. Trump's expected to take the stage here in about an hour, but there has been a line around and around and around trying to get into this event today. It's about 80 degrees plus here, and the campaign is in celebratory mode. They feel like they accomplished what they needed to accomplish last night and also capitalized on what they perceive as Biden's biggest vulnerability, and that is his age and mental acuity. They have been putting fundraising pitches out there, trying to capitalize on the debate. And Reed, it's significant that they are coming here to Virginia for their first post-debate rally. Virginia is a place that's gone blue since Obama won it first in 2008. It has not really been in play for Republicans for quite some time, but the the Trump campaign feels like they can at least make this a close race here. So notably, he'll be appearing here with Republican Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. And that's significant because when Glenn Youngkin ran a couple of years ago, he kind of distanced himself from Trump, tried to thread that needle in Republican Party politics. Now he has endorsed him. He is appearing with Trump today on stage for the first time. And that is a signal that the campaign is projecting also that Republicans are coming home. So certainly trying to capitalize on the performance last night and take that performance and see if they can make not only battleground states even more competitive, but outside battleground states that kind of used to be out of reach.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much. We appreciate that live report. Okay, friends, coast to coast and streaming worldwide, we're watching all of this. CBS News 24/7. We're back in a few minutes. CBS News 24/7 listening in to the First Lady of the United States, Jill Biden, before the President of the United States takes to the podium. Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's listen in.
Leads us through it. And at this moment, with these perils the world is facing, there is no one that I would rather have sitting in the Oval Office right now than my husband. Last night on the debate stage was Joe Biden, a president with integrity and character, who told the truth. And Donald Trump told lie after lie after lie. Oh, you're good. You're so good. This election is about you. Joe is fighting for the families here in North Carolina and across America who are working hard to find a secure place in the middle class. The moms who worry that their daughters will grow up in a country with fewer rights than we had. And as a teacher, I'm always proud. Yay to the teachers. Love the teachers who are here. Proud of the way that Joe fights for educators, like our next speaker, Eric Fitz. Eric is a former public school principal, and he now works at Wake County Public Schools. Making sure teachers get the support they need so that students can thrive. Eric, thank you for all that you do for your fellow educators and students, your family, and your community. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage Eric Fitz.
All right, First Lady Jill Biden right there, a prelude to the President of the United States at a campaign rally in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's as if she got out as a teacher that highlighting pen and highlighted what she saw in former President Donald Trump in the debate last night. She said the word lie 3 times while she wears a sweater that says vote, vote, vote. We'll continue to watch what happens there, and as soon as the president speaks, we will revisit that in this broadcast. But let's talk about what so many people are dealing with in the Midwest. so many of you watching right now continue to deal with a tragedy, a story from record flooding. Now think about this. Millions of you across the Midwest remain under threat of severe flooding. And because of that, we want to bring in Tom Hansen. He's live in Waterville, Minnesota. And Tom, this is not only a weather story, but it is a people story. Tell us how people are managing in the floods right now.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. This is very much a human story and one that is impacting this entire community of about 2,000 people. Reed, I want to give you a sense of the water depth that we're walking through right now. Consider when you take a dip in the shallow end of the swimming pool. That's about the depth of the water that we're standing in, and it is continuing to go down, but it is still significant. Now, I want you to take a look around me and just see this area that is totally consumed by the floodwaters. You can see the gasoline right there. You can see what used to be a gas station, I should say, and then homes over here that have made every effort to put sandbags, but with no luck. The water has seeped in. In fact, if you take a look over here in the main thoroughfare, as we wade across, this is one of the main streets in Waterville. You can see there's water as far as the eye can see, so much so that people who live here have left the area. We spoke to one of the few families that remains here doing everything that they can to save their home. They lost their puppy in the flood. They lost some irreplaceable family heirlooms, really precious items. Understandably, they are devastated. Now, you would think that this community would have high levels of flood insurance. We're next to a lake, but that is not the case. And in fact, that's not the case for most of the Midwest. Only about roughly 2% of homeowners in the Midwest have flood insurance. So a large portion of this community, large portion of this region, unprotected from these catastrophic floods. Looking ahead, we should hit a dry patch of weather through the weekend, but Monday, Tuesday, people here are waiting on pins and needles because there's more precipitation underway and expected to come through Minnesota. For a town called Waterville, water is the last thing that these people need and want.
You said it. Tom Hansen, literally knee-deep in the story and punctuating the mission of this broadcast. CBS News 24/7, streaming coast to coast, landing in communities when news breaks. Thank you so much for that. So from the water over to meteorologist Darren Peck. And Darren, you have a way to look at this and use your technology and virtual reality to really bring this to life.
Yeah, Reed, that's a part of the globe that's really kind of been under the gun here for quite some time. And we can visualize even today, there's more rain coming to the upstream locations for a lot of those rivers. You see this big mass of clouds here moving across the upper Midwest? Underneath all of those clouds is where you find that location in Minnesota, and it's where you find Iowa. And it's been almost ceaseless here. You go back a couple of weeks ago, there were about 18 inches of rain that fell on that part of the globe just in about 2 or 3 days time frame. And as a result of that now, I think for most of us who don't live there and maybe trying to wrap our heads around this, come over towards Iowa. When you look at the states over here, they've got really weird boundaries. They're not perfect lines like so many other states are. And many people may not, if you haven't lived there and you're just kind of getting oriented, if you look at Iowa, that weird little boundary there in the state, that's the Mississippi River on one side. Look at the other side. Look at that weird boundary over there. That's Missouri, in between two major rivers. I'll have more on this later. For now, Reed, over to you for breaking news.
All right, I'm going to toss you right back out to Raleigh, North Carolina, where Joe Biden is now taking to the stage. So many voters wanting to know how he will perform after last night's performance at the debates. Let's listen in.
My back. I apologize. It's good knowing you have my back. Eric, thanks for that introduction. We had a wonderful time spending time with your sons, Kristen and Carter. We're going to grow up to be incredible young men. You would have been really impressed the way they talked about their dad, how informed they were about what was going on. I was truly impressed, and I ate 2 hamburgers. And a special thanks to Roy and Kristen Cooper. Roy, you've been a great governor. Which makes it all the more important that North Carolina elected a great governor to replace you, Josh Stein. And when I'm reelected again with your help, I want you to know that I'm not promising not to take Roy away from North Carolina. Whether they'll come or not, I don't know. And thanks to all the state and local leaders here today, the great musicians and entertainers who performed earlier. Folks, let me tell you why I'm here in North Carolina. I'm here for one. That's okay. That's okay. I'm here in North Carolina for one reason, because I intend to win this state in November. Are you going to see that? I think we are. And Roy's right. We win here, we win the election. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to stand up for the women of America. We're going to restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land. We're going to stand up for the right to vote. We're going to stand up for Medicare and Social Security. We're going to fight for child care, paid leave, and elder care. We're going to keep lowering the cost of prescription drugs, not just for seniors, but for every single American. We're going to keep protecting the Affordable Care Act, which is why more than 40 million Americans have health insurance today. They didn't before. We're going to protect our children and get the weapons of war off our streets. We're going to provide clean drinking water, affordable high-speed internet, quality education for every child in America. We're going to secure our border and protect legal immigration. And unlike the other guy, we're going to stand up to dictators like Putin, because America bows to no one, no one ever. Folks, and we're going to keep dealing with the climate crisis. Look, more than anything, we're going to preserve, protect, and defend our democracy. Because more than anything else, that is what is at stake in America this election. Your freedom, your democracy. America itself is at stake. Now, folks, I don't know what you did last night, but I spent 90 minutes on a stage debating a guy who has the morals of an alley cat. Did you see Trump last night? My guess, he said, I mean it sincerely, a new record for the most lies told in a single debate. He lied about the great economy he created. He lied about the pandemic he botched, killing millions of people. He closed businesses. He closed schools, losing their homes, people all over this country. America was flat on its back. So I told Trump that he was just one of two presidents in American history who left office with fewer jobs than he started. Herbert Hoover was the other one. That's why I call him Donald Herbert Hoover Trump. And then he lied about how great he was for veterans. But then I told him how he had called a veteran who had given their lives in the country in World War I and refused to go to the grave sites. He called them suckers and losers. He tried to deny it. But let me ask you, are you going to believe a 4-star Marine general, his own former Chief of Staff, John Kelly, who said he said that? Or the disgraced, defeated, and lying Donald Trump? My son was one of those people. Not a war woman in the Vietnam. Folks, look, how about the fact that 44 44 It's okay. How about the fact that 40 out of his 44 top advisors, including the vice president, aren't supporting him this time around? The people who know him best, 40 of them said, I will not support the man I work for this time around. It tells you a lot about the person who knows him. Look, he lied about how great he was on crime. I had to remind him that he oversaw a record increase in murder rates in 2020. On my watch, violent crime has hit a 50-year low. There's more to do with a 50-year low. And then I pointed out that the only convicted criminal on the stage last night was Donald Trump. When I thought about his 34 felony convictions, his sexual assault on a woman in a public place, his being fined $400 million for business fraud, I thought to myself, Donald Trump isn't just a convicted felon. Donald Trump is a one-man crime wave. He's got more trials. He's got more trials coming up. Time for that. Look, the thing that bothers me maybe most about him, he has no respect for women or the law. He doesn't. And then, his biggest lie, he lied about how he had nothing to do with the insurrection of January 6th. We all saw with our own eyes. We watched it on television. We saw thousands in his direction attack the Capitol. We saw police being attacked, the Capitol being ransacked, the mob hunting for Speaker Pelosi, gallows literally set up for Mike Pence. And then he told them as he sat in the dining room, the private dining room, one door off my Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching the TV. He did not a single thing to stop it. Nothing. Nothing at all. And now he wants to pardon all those convicted and criminals. But folks, for all his lies, we learned some important truths about Donald Trump last night. We learned he's still proud of being the person who killed Roe v. Wade. We learned he's still proud about the pain and cruelties inflicted on America's women. We learned he still believes that politicians, not doctors and women, should make decisions about a woman's health. We learned that if he's elected again and the MAGA Republicans pass a national ban on abortion, he will sign it. Donald Trump says he thinks overturning Roe v. Wade was a beautiful thing. I think it was a nightmare. No, I really mean it, a nightmare. And I made it clear again last night that if you elect me and Kamala, you give us a Democratic Congress, we will make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again. He continued to lie. He said, I quadruple taxes. Where the hell has he been? Which is a simple lie. I didn't raise a tax on anyone in America who they made less than $400,000 a year. And I won't in my second term either. We learned that Trump, who had the largest deficit of any president in 4 years because of a $2 trillion tax cut to the super wealthy, we learned that Trump wants to give another giant tax cut for the very wealthy and the biggest corporations. This time, $5 trillion, not a joke, $5 trillion. To pay for it, he's going to cut Medicare and Social Security. He'll cut health care. He'll do it all with millions of working middle-class Americans all pay for another tax cut for the very wealthy. Then, to add insult to injury, he wants to raise taxes on the average family $2,500 a year. What amounts to a new 10% sales tax on all products imported in America. That's his new plan. For food, coffee, candy bars, and so much more. It's going to raise the tax on the average family $2,500 a year. And most dangerously, though, we learned that Donald Trump will not respect this year's election outcome. He's still not respecting the last time out. Well, think about it. Every court in Newnan ruled that it was a fair election. He's still denying it, still telling lies. 3 times Trump was asked last night by the moderators, would he respect the election results if he lost this time? 3 times he refused to answer. 3 times. Folks, Donald Trump refused to accept the results in 2020. We all saw what happened on January the 6th. It's a direct consequence of that. It was an international embarrassment. By the way, as I go to these international meetings, I know every major world leader, and I literally, because I've been around, as you might have noticed. But they asked me, did he really mean this? Was this real? It caused a constitutional crisis and international embarrassment. Now, Trump is making it clear that if he doesn't win this time, there will be, in his words, bloodshed. No president has ever said anything like that. No president. His words, not mine. We're going to let Donald Trump attack our democracy again? I don't think so. Folks, we've come a long way from the mess that Donald Trump left us. We came out of the pandemic. We're a long way from where Donald Trump telling us to inject bleach in our skin, that COVID is not that dangerous. Today, we have the strongest economy in the world without exception. 15 million new jobs. 800,000 manufacturing jobs. Unemployment under 4% for a record 2 years in a row. Historic black and Hispanic unemployment down. Historic creation of small business in black and all communities across the nation, particularly in rural areas. Historic economic growth. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3% and is still going down. I know we have more to do to get prices down. We have to take on corporate greed. They're making twice the profit they were before the pandemic. We got to make housing more affordable, provide child care, make the tax code fair. 16 Nobel winners of the economic Nobel Prize have looked at my economic plan this week. They've issued a report and a Trump's plan. Here's what they concluded. They said that my plan would continue to grow the economy and bring down inflation. 16 Nobel laureates. And that Trump's plan would send the nation into recession and inflation soaring through the roof. But don't take my word for it. Folks, let me close with this. I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. Well, I know. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up. I know what it took to take our economy from the depths of the pandemic to where it is today, the strongest economy in the world. I know what it'll take to bring this economy to everybody. I know what it'll take to rally the world to stand up against Putin and defend freedom, not yield to him. And I know it'll take to keep the world safe and free for the years ahead. Folks, I give you my word as a Biden, I would not be running again if I didn't believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job. Because quite frankly, the stakes are too high. The stakes are too high. Donald Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat for everything America stands for. Look, he doesn't understand what I think all of you do. America is the finest, the most unique nation in the world. We're the only nation in the world, and I mean this sincerely, it's a fact statement, not a hyperbolic statement, it's fact. We're the only nation in the world built on an idea. All the nations built on ethnicity, geography, and other religion, but we're built on an idea that we're all created equal. We deserve to be treated equally throughout our lives. We've never fully lived up to it. I'll be damned in the year 2024, just 2 years before the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence, that I'll let Donald Trump walk away from it. I give you my word as a Biden, we're still a nation. I believe we're still a nation that believes in honesty, in decency, and treating people with respect. I still believe we're a nation that gives everyone a fair shot and leaves nobody behind. We're still a nation that gives hate no safe harbor. And we're still the beacon to the world. We can never give up what makes America, America. Donald Trump is motivated by revenge and retribution. Well, revenge and retribution never build a damn thing. You and I, we Americans, are a nation of hope, optimism, and possibilities. That's what always built America. That's going to continue to build America today. The choice in this election is simple. Donald Trump will destroy our democracy. I will defend it. So, folks, are you with me? Donald Trump's the first president I've heard of that stood up there and running for president, having been one term, saying America's a failing nation. Where the hell does he think he is? I'm serious. A failing, I don't know, a president wouldn't trade places with America in a heartbeat. He's dead wrong. America's not a losing nation. America's winning. As I stand here today, I can honestly say I've never been more optimistic about America's future in my whole career. We just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity, nothing when we act together. You got it. So may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Let's go get them, North Carolina.
CBS News 24/7 with our cameras coming in from video monitors. Raleigh, North Carolina, as President Joe Biden speaks to his supporters there. Look, there was what happened on stage and there was what happened off stage. So let's break that down just a little bit as we see the president give the First Lady a little bit of warmth and wave to his supporters that stood behind him. On stage, President Biden addressed what arguably pundits will call the elephant in the room, and that was last night's debate performance. He said, look, I realize I'm not a young man. I realize I don't debate and speak in public like I used to. He acknowledged that and dispensed of that, and then went forward in the business of differentiation, making sure that the voters watching right now, streaming and on television, know the difference between Joseph Biden and Donald Trump, calling Donald Trump a liar and a felon. Now let's talk about what was happening off stage, and you probably could hear some hints of that. Several times, protesters in that audience tried to shout out their opposition to President Biden, But every time, his supporters shouted things like 4 more years or yes, we can. So once again, you're watching President Joe Biden on the day after. Arguably, he had to grab the ball and run with it because last night, as all of the headlines deliver, was a tough night for Joe Biden on the debate stage facing Donald Trump. So let's leave off there and talk about what's happening in Virginia, because our monitors are also showing us in real time what is happening in the world of Trump supporters. You are looking live right now at a campaign rally about to happen in Chesapeake, Virginia. We understand the former president, Donald Trump, will take to the podium and he will speak at 3 p.m. Eastern. He will likely have taken notes on what President Joe Biden had to say about him. He will likely know what President Joe Biden brought by way of energy and his speaking abilities there on stage. And anything that Donald Trump perceived as a weakness by Joe Biden, you can bet he will work to capitalize on. You did hear Joe Biden cough a little bit during that speech. His campaign tells us at CBS News he's suffering from a cold. But once again, look, we cover all parts of this country, all perspectives, and now you are looking at Chesapeake, Virginia, and Trump supporters. As soon as the former president takes to the stage, we'll bring it to you. Picture of our nation at this time in history. Coast to coast and streaming worldwide. You're watching CBS News 24/7. I'm back in just a few minutes. CBS News 24/7, coast to coast and streaming worldwide. We just had an opportunity to listen to President Joe Biden coming out swinging after what arguably was a rather weak performance in last night's debates. If you listen to pundits all over the country, he really had it on him that he had to grab the ball and run it hard. So watching in Virginia, obviously, was former President Donald Trump, no doubt taking notes and seeing any entry points in this game where he can go on stage at 3 p.m. Eastern and really try to give a counterpoint to that. So let's go right now to where President Donald Trump will be taking to the stage at 3 p.m. Eastern. We have Caitlin Huey-Burns. She's joining us now. All right, so what's the energy of the crowd? Social media brings things fast into the palm of our hands. Likely people were hearing a little bit, if only by one line at a time, what President Joe Biden has to say. How did that fuel the crowd there?
Hey, good to see you again. Well, some of the speakers are just getting underway here, and we're expecting the former president in just over an hour here. But it has been a very celebratory mood here. That's not rare, of course, for Trump rallies. But, of course, this comes on the heels of that debate performance that the campaign is really trying to capitalize on. They are claiming victory after that debate and hoping to move that momentum to places like here in Virginia, which usually haven't been competitive for Republicans.
Okay, we are peeking in right now, and we will revisit you. And as soon as the former president takes the stage, we will bring it to our viewers right here streaming CBS News 24/7. Thank you so much. All right, so much to talk about right now. Breaking news out of Washington, and definitely some major rulings by the Supreme Court that will most assuredly be on the lips of Donald Trump when he takes to the stage there. And I want to bring in my friend. All right, you always break these things down. CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford in a way that makes me smarter and makes me feel like I have a friend. And don't we need that? So some Supreme Court rulings. Let's first of all start out with that ruling about the accused January 6th insurrectionists and what this means for them.
Well, first of all, thank you for those kind words. You know I love talking to you, and I love this show, so I'm always excited to do it because it's always a great conversation. And today's decision is, well, all three of them today are big ones. The one on January 6th, that was about this law that prosecutors have used to go after a few hundred January 6th defendants, including one Donald J. Trump. It amounts to 2 of the 4 charges that special counsel Jack Smith has brought against President Trump. When one of the January 6 defendants had argued in his case, challenging this charge, that prosecutors were using the wrong criminal law. They had looked at this old law involving prosecution of people who were tampering with evidence and documents that Congress passed in the wake of the Enron accounting scandal, and said that you could be charged with obstruction of an official proceeding if you were in one section, and then another section it says if you're tampering with documents and evidence and that kind of thing. So this guy, Mr. Fisher, argues that cannot apply to January 6 people. That's about, documents and accounting and Enron. And today, the Supreme Court agreed to a point. They said that these federal prosecutors for these January 6 defendants do have to show it has some link to evidence if they're going to get charged with obstruction of an official proceeding. So it's going to give January 6 defendants, at least a few hundred of them, an ability to go back and try to challenge that specific charge. I'm sure Donald Trump is going to ask that charge to be dismissed in his case if he doesn't have immunity, and that's the case we're going to get on Monday, as I'm sure you've heard.
Right.
So, it is significant, but I don't think this is a huge win for Trump, because I do think if you read the court's opinion closely, the prosecutors can charge a lot of these defendants still with this charge, because there was evidence in January 6. Congress was counting ballots and votes and looking at state electors. So I think they'll still be able to use this statute. And why is that important, Reed? This statute carries a 20-year prison sentence. It is a big hammer for prosecutors, and they've been able to use it to get a lot of people to plead. So the other things that people are getting charged with, like trespassing and all that kind of stuff, those are like 1 year, 2 years.
Right,
this one's 20 years in prison potentially.
All right, so you used the term big hammer. Let's talk about the Chevron ruling right now, because this took a big hammer to something that has been in place for, 4 decades and really speaks to big business.
Yes, and this is one that has been in the crosshairs of conservatives for many, many years, because they believe that it's led to what you've heard of, I know, called the administrative state, where unelected federal bureaucrats just have too much power over all of American life, and they're making all these decisions instead of Congress, or, instead of courts being able to kind of weigh in and say, well, that's not the law. And so today the court, in a decision that divided the justice along ideological lines, said, we're going to stop doing that. We're going to overturn this decision. That prompted a fiery dissent by Justice Kagan, one of the liberals on the court. So, we'll see how that shakes out. But that is a big decision for kind of the structure of government. And, it's going to make people rewrite a lot of law books, because that was a big case for many, many years.
Yes, it was in the bedrock. So, Jan, another question for you. Many of us drove by people who are without houses. Our homeless populations are growing in these United States. This morning on our way to work, maybe picking up coffee, we saw people sleeping in parks or in tents or on the sidewalk. There was another ruling out of the Supreme Court that has some great sway in how cities will respond to homelessness in their borders. Talk to us about that.
Okay, so, and Reed, this is a case out of a town in Oregon, and it shows, I think, when, you think about the 3 cases we're talking about today, kind of just the vast scope of so much of what the Supreme Court does and how it has such implications for everyday American life. And this was a case coming out of Oregon where the town had said, we want to be able to enforce our ordinance that basically bans people from sleeping outside in public parks and public spaces. And, of course, that would affect homeless people who are sleeping outside in public parks, whether it's in tents or on a bench. And the lower court has said they couldn't do it, that it violated the Constitution, the Constitution's ban against cruel and unusual punishment. Again, in another ideologically kind of line that they drew today, the justices upheld that Oregon law and said it's okay, you can have those bans against people sleeping outside overnight in public places. And, it's produced kind of an unusual lineup kind of on the ground. We've seen a lot of governors, we've seen mayors in some of the cities, particularly out where you are in California, saying we actually do support these bans. So there are some Democrats who say we need to have this tool because this is a growing problem. But then you have people who are obviously advocating for homeless people and saying, like, it's just horrible. Like, where are they going to go? This is cruel and unusual punishment. It's a very difficult issue, closely divided court, but today they did uphold the ban. So for now, these cities will be able to enforce it against people who feel like they have nowhere else to go but a public park to sleep.
Well, you raise a good point as we close. San Francisco Mayor London Breed has said in the past that she felt like her hands were tied in being able to address the homelessness issue that is very much prevalent in San Francisco. All right, my new friend from CBS News in Washington, Jan, thank you so much. It's been a joyous week to get to know you and to work alongside you. Well, and wait until Monday.
Thank you.
I have a feeling we've got another big ruling. It's a date. All right now we want to get your eyes on a corruption trial that has commanded the attention of people concerned about corruption in our nation. Let's go to New Jersey right now and the corruption trial against embattled Democratic Senator Bob Menendez. 16 criminal charges, including bribery, fraud, and acting as a foreign agent. Now, those charges set the stage for the defense and the prosecution. So let's break that down. The prosecution, they are calling their last witness to the stand, while we are right now hearing the defense is expected to call like more than a dozen witnesses to the stand. They're coming out swinging. All the while, Menendez does too. He says he's innocent. Our cameras are also fired up on what a New Mexico judge could say at any minute as it relates to the fate of Alec Baldwin. We're, of course, talking about that much reported fallout from the fatal movie set shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Here's what to watch for today. Baldwin faces a sole charge of involuntary manslaughter in that case, and today is the day that the judge has some choices. Could dismiss the charge or move it forward. Mr. Baldwin held a prop gun on the set of Rust during that rehearsal when it went off, and Hutchins died at the scene. By the way, director Joel Souza also wounded. So today could also be about how effective Baldwin's lawyers were. Remember, they argued the FBI damaged the firearm during the forensic testing before attorneys were even able to get their hands on it and examine it themselves. The bottom line there, an allegation that the FBI may have destroyed evidence. So prosecutors are telling the judge they have plenty of evidence to work with. Well, Alec Baldwin has pled not guilty to the charge, which carries, by the way, a maximum of 18 months in prison. We want to go to Texas right now, and families dealing with the heat. Cool you off now. Meteorologist Darren Peck with an eye on the sizzling national forecast, Darren.
And specifically right there, Reed, you just mentioned Dallas, and some of the numbers to wrap our heads around right now in terms of not only what the air temperature is going to be doing down here for this part of the country, but what the added humidity is doing. And remember, as I bring the numbers up here to show you what the actual daytime highs are, think of the Gulf of Mexico here. We're going to come back to that in a second because that is a huge source of humidity in the air. So Dallas and Tulsa both have a significant issue today. If you just look at the number, the daytime highs here are climbing into the mid and upper 90s for Dallas. But when we remember the humidity that is streaming into this part of the country from the Gulf of Mexico, you now need to start talking about a heat index. And the number for Dallas, in terms of what it's going to feel like for people, 99 is bad enough. It's actually going to feel more like 110. Same thing with Tulsa. You get towards the middle of Oklahoma, and the numbers there will also be climbing up into around 110 in terms of the heat index. That's issue number one, and there are excessive heat warnings here. But in addition to that, what we also want to start thinking about is all that humidity and what that can also lend itself to down the road, because the next part of this forecast actually has to deal with what we could potentially be talking about on Monday. It's early, but it is now time to start drawing your attention to the other side of the Atlantic. And when you take a look at the view, all the clouds that we can already see developing out towards Africa are already looking at a 90% chance of developing into a tropical named storm by early next week. It could be in the Caribbean by Monday. Much more on that over the next few days. For now, Reed, back to you.
Darren, my friend, it's fortuitous that you show us the globe because we are going to travel that globe. We have an opportunity to take you to Paris right now. What are you looking at? Well, our CBS video feed showing you the famous Arc de Triomphe. My apologies to my French teacher in high school. Sporting the symbol for the Paralympic Games. They're coming to the city in 2 months. And before that, millions of you, we know, will travel to Paris as the 2024 Summer Olympics get ready to kick off at the end of July. We know that every community we reach in these United States has somebody that they are cheering for. So stay tuned for CBS and our team's work in Paris in just a matter of weeks. Nothing brings people together like sports. We've talked a lot about politics in this broadcast, friends, and you know my favorite thing to do when politics is talked about?
Change the subject.
Change it to the weather. Nice to have you with us, Darren, today.
Happy to help. Yeah.
All right, everybody try to stay cool, and if you're in the Midwest, reach for your neighbor. See what you can do to help out. CBS News 24/7, when it is breaking, when it's happening now, we bring it to you. And also we highlight with our Eye on America, the best of us reaching out to find solutions.